Good morning, Leader.
Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to October's meeting of the County Council Executive. So I'll move straight on with apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Leader. We have apologies from Councillor Corey. We also have apologies from Debbie Barnes, Chief Executive, and Councillor Parker, Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board.
Thank you. I think Councillor Corey might try and come later, but we'll record those apologies at the moment. Okay, any declaration of interest anybody wishes to make? There are none, thank you. So then we go on to announcements by Leader, Executive and Directors. Any announcements, anybody? Nope. Okay, thank you for that. So then we move on to item 4, minutes of the meeting held on 6th of September. Is it your wish I sign these as a true and accurate record? Agreed? Thank you very much. So then we move on to item 5, which is the extension of the substance misuse treatment contract. Councillor Burkett.
Thank you. Yeah, so it is the extension, as you've just said, for the substance misuse treatment. It's due to end on the 30th of September 2023, and it's a very important thing because it does take into account such things as, which are close to my heart, the sleep, drug and alcohol treatment, which is very difficult to reach people. So I think it's a very, very important contract that we run. So I'm going to hand over to Lucy and Carl, and they'll just run through it quickly.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Burkett. So just to summarise the paper, so our treatment and recovery service provides specialist treatment and support in the community for people with drug and or alcohol problems, and this paper's asking for approval of a modification to the contract for a 6-month extension. We currently commission the service from We Are With You, which is a registered charity, and it's worth noting that we are currently undertaking pre-procurement work as part of planned recommissioning, but we've identified some opportunities that we'd like to maximise, but that will require an extension to the current contract. The current contracts have already been extended to their full available in-contract end dates of the 30th of October 2023. There are 3 key reasons really that we're seeking that 6-month extension. I'll talk through the first, which is around Greater Lincolnshire, and then Carl will talk about the second and third. We have identified some opportunities to explore commissioning collaboration as part of the Greater Lincolnshire Public Health Pilot. The recommended extension would allow time to work through options to achieve efficiencies and improve outcomes by commissioning services across the Greater Lincolnshire geography. There are a number of different options for us to explore, but some of the advantages would include improved accessibility of services for local people and reduced administration costs. And to support this work, North Lincolnshire and North East Lincolnshire have already secured extensions to their contracts so that we can progress conversations. I'll hand over to Carl to talk about the other 2 reasons.
Thank you. So the Council obtained some additional grant funding to support substance misuse treatment and recovery earlier in the year, and that was approved by the Executive for inclusion in the existing contracts in July this year. Now, because we are expecting increases in those grant funding cycles and continuation of those cycles through 2023, 24 and 24, 25. This proposed 6 months extension would align to the new contract year, or align the contract year with those grant award dates, and that will make both the applications for future grant funding and the practical utilisation of that funding significantly more straightforward to administer. The third factor relates to the soon-to-be changing procurement regime on the governance and decision-making for the programme. So Health and Social Care Act 2022 introduced a new, or is introducing a new procurement regime called the Provider Selection Regime, which will govern the procurement of healthcare contracts, including local authority commissioned health services, of which this is one. So this will represent the government's position on the most efficient and effective way to commission and procure health services specifically, and produces a tailored regime, more tailored to those services as opposed to the more general procurement regime set out in the public contract regulations. We know that the Department of Health wishes to implement that later this year, but as yet we're awaiting details regarding the final formulation of those regulations and precise timing of plans to implement it. So that's significant in the context of this recommissioning exercise, in that implementation appears likely to coincide with the start of formal governance for commissioning if we were to stick with the current timeline, i.e. new service to start October 23, making it difficult to properly take account of PSR in recommendations around the procurement methodology for these new services. So the extension would enable implementation to be dealt with nationally and locally first, to give time to fully consider the application and potential benefits of the new procurement regime to the recommissioning and procurement of these services. The services are performing well, and there are no issues or concerns relating to provider performance that would negate progression with an extension for a further 6 months. And in terms of cost implications, the cost of the 6-month extension is consistent with current service costs. So there's no additional funding required as a result of this proposal. And the future service budget will be considered as part of the commissioning review for substance misuse services beyond April 2024.
Thank you for that. I think we've got the scrutiny comments. Councillor Marfleet's with us, is he?
Yes.
On the screen, I should say. I welcome Councillor Overton to the meeting. Councillor Marfleet, thank you.
Morning. Yes, the committee sort of took quite a lot of interest in this item, more on, in effect, to look at it going forward with a scrutiny review in terms of the performance of We Are With You. You know, they felt that obviously this is an individual focused approach, so in theory should have some good results. We did also acknowledge that there perhaps needs to be a bit more awareness in terms of what is now classified as misuse substance, as things and time changes, and so does the substance themselves. We did notice that there was some staffing challenges, and then the sort of contract, when they hit staffing challenges, the contract sort of tends to then sort of go a bit flat, was the sort of image, which is why we're sort of taking a bit more of a look at this. But the really key thing that we really welcome was supporting the Greater Lincolnshire Public Health Pilot, and that is, we saw that as beneficial. So, and that was really the comments, that we fully support the extension of the contract to allow us to get these contracts in better shape going forward.
Thank you for that. They have been also circulated for the executive's perusal. Pretty straightforward, so it is just an extension. Any questions, comments? Just briefly, what happened? Oh, Councillor Petroy? Right, Councillor Bradwell.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, I mean, the service is really, really needed. I think more probably now than ever before because of the amount of people who are taking drugs. But I also think as well, being around a bit of a long time, the contract has improved every time we have re-procured it, I have to say. And actually, the need as well changes. So, you know, it's really good that we're extending the contract to really look at what we do need going forward. Because, as I say, things change, people change change how they want to receive a service as well. So, yeah, I'm fully in agreement with extending it and actually looking forward to when, you know, we've re-procured the contract and that for, well, I don't know whether it'll be 3 or 5 years probably. So, yeah, I'm fully in support of it.
Thank you, Leader. It's just a couple of questions, really, which was on the 6-month extension, happy to support that. Are we confident that that's long enough to get the procurement done? And obviously it also says consistent with current costs and budget. Now, are we sure there won't be any uplift in that? Is there a provision within that contract for the service provider to uplift with, you know, costs with inflation, etc.?
So the service provider has been engaged about the potential to extend, subject to the support of the council to proceed with it. There will need to be a discussion to finalise, but we've made it clear that the costs will need to stay consistent with existing budget.
So, recommendations there on page 12. So it's the modification to extend the contract till the 31st of March 2024, and then delegates to a usual delegation. All those in favour, please show. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. That's that one. So we'll now move to the extension of the Integrated Sexual Health Services contract. Councillor Burkett.
Thank you. This is a 12-month extension for this service, and it's to give us really time to explore new ways of commissioning collaboratively with the Greater Lincolnshire. But Lucy and Carl again will explain more about what we're going to do.
Thank you, Councillor Burkett. So responsibility for commissioning sexual health, reproductive and HIV services is shared between local authorities, the Integrated Care Board and NHS England. But open access sexual health services are a mandatory responsibility of local authorities. And we, Lincolnshire County Council, currently commission the delivery of sexual and reproductive health services from a number of organisations, Lincolnshire Community Health Service NHS Trust, a registered charity called Positive Health, and with a number of GP practices and community pharmacies across Lincolnshire to make sure that the services are widely available and accessible across the county. And the contract, all of our contracts for the current service are due to come to an end on the 31st of March 2023. We do have a recommissioning program currently underway, but similar in many ways to the substance misuse service, there are a number of considerations that are impacting on our work around pre-procurement and some opportunities that we would like the additional 12-month extension to enable us to explore. So the Greater Lincolnshire Public Health Pilot, again, is our key motivation here. There are opportunities to work much more closely with North Lincolnshire and North East Lincolnshire around our sexual and reproductive health services. For example, seeking to integrate arrangements across the three authorities to deliver better outcomes for people of Greater Lincolnshire and to deliver a more efficient and effective model. And there are a number of different approaches we might take to that joint working that we are currently starting to explore. We're also, for sexual health, expecting a new national sexual health strategy, which would steer our local approach, and within that a national specification for sexual and reproductive health services, which we would use to guide our local service specification. That's expected to be published later this year. The specification isn't expected to be prescriptive, but it's going to recognise the need for us as Lincolnshire to understand our local need and the local approach that we should take. But by delaying by having a 12-month extension, what it enables us to do is make the most of that national work that's been done and understand what's going to make what the evidence tells us will make the best, what would be the best approach locally around sexual health services. There's an additional reason I'll hand over to Carl to share.
Thank you, Lucy. Yes, so again, as with substance misuse services, sexual and reproductive health services are health services that will be in scope of the new procurement regime, PSR, and this extension will again enable the council to take full account of those changes in the planned and ongoing recommissioning of sexual and reproductive health services in Lincolnshire. The providers of both the Integrated Sexual Health Service and the Sexual Health Outreach Service are both performing extremely well. So again, there are no performance issues that would negatively impact a decision to extend, and both providers have been engaged about and would be supportive of the proposed extension, subject to the council's decision to proceed with it. And once again, similarly, in terms of budget and cost implications, the 12-month extension here doesn't increase the cost of the services above the current contract value and can continue to be funded through existing sources for the proposed extension period. Thank you.
Councillor Marfleet, have you got anything to add?
Yes, hold on. Just come. Yes. Well, unfortunately, I'd had to leave the committee and hand over to the vice chair on this. And actually, there was sort of technically no further comments, although comments, I've looked into this, and my comments going forward on this is that really we do welcome the Greater Lincolnshire Public Health pilot scheme on this. And the reason being is it talks about open access. But if your sites are in Boston and Lincoln, that really isn't very open access to the north of Lincolnshire County Council and the local needs. And it does need, there's a lot of things go on here. There's confidentiality, location availability. They are used and there are issues. And this is a great thing. And I'm all for getting it right. But we really do need to sort of make sure that open access really does mean open access when we talk about ruralities and Lincolnshire. If you're at Holton-le-Clay, it's a long way to Boston, especially there's no trains and no buses. And you certainly wouldn't have any confidentiality, because if you were young, you'd have to perhaps ask somebody to take you there. So yeah, there certainly needs to be more. And I think sometimes when we look at these sort of contracts like the sexual and the previous one of misuse, having gone to Louth Hospital at the weekend to what they call their hub, there's so much sort of opportunity for our health colleagues to align a lot of these contracts into far more central locations and better reusing of what I call the Lincolnshire Estate One Public Health. And I'd hope that maybe going forward these contracts look at that closer, to sort of work with colleagues better. Louth was great at the weekend on Saturday, but it was really underutilised, and it could have had Misuse, One New Lincolnshire, the sexual team in there, and actually open up the offer and open up the access. So I'll leave that one for the colleagues to look at going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Marfleet. Okay, questions, comments then, please. Yes, Councillor Davies.
Thank you. I'm broadly supportive of this. What was interesting in the previous contract was the talk of the volume of impact. I wonder, could you just outline for us what are your key metrics from a contract perspective and a performance metric across the scope here, and how many people are interfacing with this service?
So apologies, I don't have that information to hand with me now, but I can provide it for you as a follow-up if that would be helpful.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, in terms of on that sort of theme, you just say, well, it's not, we're carrying on as we are in terms of contract value, but there is no information about value for money. Is it expensive? Is it what it, it would be really helpful if the committee had that information before they made a decision. So can't you tell us verbally where your assessment is, except it's not a report, it's a verbal?
I can talk a little bit about our benchmark. We've been doing some work as part of the pre-procurement work around benchmarking to understand compared to our comparator counties where we sit. So broadly speaking, and we'll provide specific details afterwards, but our outcomes are good. In terms of our spend, we spend slightly less, I think, than the average for comparator neighbourhoods. So we've got a paper that we'd be able to share, but overall, we sort of have an average spend but achieve good outcomes compared to other counties similar to Lincolnshire.
Sorry.
No, Alina, you go.
Sorry, just to add, in terms of the current contract, in terms of performance is very good. They're meeting the KPIs and demonstrating that value for money. And as Lucy said, in terms of extending that further, it is, there are good outcomes for individuals. But we can give you the precise details around that performance following this meeting, but no concerns around the existing arrangements and performance.
Yeah, I mean, it is an extension, so there is, but I think Councillor Davis is right. We do need, to make a decision, we need all the information in front of us. I'm sure you have it, but we need it as well. In terms of sort of Greater Lincolnshire, so we have a shared public health Glenn, don't we? And just your comments about how this might, if it happens, I mean, it's not a decision for today, that how it might work and is it feasible?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, there is an overlap, and I'm expecting that we'll be able to report to members in the next month or two on how the pilot programme around Greater Lincolnshire Public Health has progressed. In many respects, this extension allows the Council to take a view both independently of that programme, but also see it as part of that programme should you wish to continue with it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davey?
I think it is difficult, Chairman, about, when you don't have all the information in front of you, as Councillor Davies has said, because it's, at the end of the day, it's an extension. I understand that, but it's £5.3 million for 1 year, and in terms of the value for money judgment, which is what we're supposed to do, is are we getting value for the taxpayer? There isn't enough information in here to tell you what the customer base is, how many people are we actually serving with this money. And I think that is a serious omission in terms of making a decision, Chairman.
I mean, I think, as I've said, we are just talking about an year extension, so it's up to the committee. Obviously, if you feel that you've not enough information, that's fine. But whether you would actually, how would get on trying to renegotiate for just a year's extension, I think. So I think the points are very valid, but my personal view is that we allow the extension, but when we come to a more extended contracts in a year's time or whenever, we will do it then. But
can I just come back? I don't disagree with you, Chairman. I just think the point is that
I think it's very fair
in assessing this, we need to do so. And as it's an extension, we obviously clearly evaluated that when we awarded the original contract, so that's fine. But I think in the future, we must make sure this information's in the paper.
I mean, I think that it is an extension, but I don't see any problem with Lucy or Alina sending that information through, and it would be good to see if the numbers have gone up over the last 5 years as well, which I would have thought they would have done, but I might be wrong, and that. So I just think it would be helpful for the executive to receive that after this meeting, really, because I know for myself it is a well-used service. But actually for colleagues, they don't know that, do they? So it's like, I don't know how much tarmac Richard lays every week, but, we do need to... no, we know. So, so I do think that, it is a valid question, and I suppose for all of us, we do need to take that on board, because we're dealing with the service, and colleagues here aren't dealing with the service.
I think there's no further comments. So, I mean, with the... sorry? Oh, did you want to come in, Alina?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I mean, they are valid points. All of that would be taken into consideration as part of the commissioning review that's been undertaken. And to be completely transparent, that's been quite limited given with COVID and our colleagues across health. The service has been disrupted during that period. However, to reiterate, the KPIs are performing very, very well. But it would come back to executive with a full commissioning review that would give you an insight in terms of the performance over the duration of the contract. But irrespective, we can provide that information, as we said, following this meeting.
Nobody else? That's good. So page 24 then, recommendations. Again, what we're voting for to a modification of the contract for a year extension to the 31st of March 2024 and delegating the details to the Executive Director in consultation with the exec member. All in favour? Thank you for that. Okay, right. Next item then is to exclude the press and public. So for the details laid out in the report, is it your wish that we exclude the press and public for the next item